She walked into briefing room C at Fob Harik on a Tuesday morning, and I did not stop what happened next. That is the part I have to live with, not the mistake Colonel Dreth made. His was honest enough, for a man who trusted his eyes over everything else. My part was the silence. I was 3 feet from that door, holding a cup of coffee I hadn't tasted, and I watched a full colonel of the United States Army tell one of the most lethal operators in the Eastern Theater that she was too old to be standing in his F-fob. She was 54. She looked older than that. Civilian clothes, gray technical pants, a canvas jacket with the collar turned up, boots that had seen 200 miles of hard ground, dust in her hair, which was short and silver and matted flat against her head. She was thin in the way people get thin out here. Not sick thin, but burned down thin, where every unnecessary ounce has been running for its life. She carried a single-soul satchel over her shoulder. She hadn't knocked. She walked in the way people walk when they've already decided, and she set the satchel on the edge of the table and looked at the map board, like she was checking her own homework. Dreth got to her before I could put my coffee down. Who authorized you past the wire? She didn't look at him. Came through checkpoint 4. Your duty NCO flagged me in. Name and unit. Voss. She looked at him then. Ashline. Dreth had 18 years in. He was not a stupid man. But he heard a call sign from a woman who looked like she'd been sleeping in drainage culverts, and his read on the situation was instant and total. He told her the call sign meant nothing to him, that the briefing room was not a way station for lost personnel, and that she looked too worn down and too far past her prime to be anyone's asset in his theater. He said it the way men say things they believe are merciful, fast, clean, matter-of-fact, like he was doing her a favor by being direct. She listened with her hands still on the edge of the table. Her face didn't change. I have work to do here, she said. I need 30 minutes with your G2. Dreth called 2 MPs. I watched them walk her to the east side of the wire. I told myself she'd present credentials once she was out of the room, once the situation calmed down, once Dreth wasn't backed into a corner in front of his staff. I told myself she was fine. I went back to the map board and spent the next hour reviewing a reconnaissance report that had come in 2 days late from the Sarkin Valley. That was Tuesday. Wednesday morning, Checkpoint 4 called in a sighting at 063 single adult female on foot coming in from the north on the Hardpack Road. No visible weapon. Moving at pace. The checkpoint corporal said her voice on the radio was calm. The way radio static is calm, a kind of flat frequency that doesn't rise or fall. By the time I got to the checkpoint, she was already through the gate. She was carrying the same satchel. She walked past the duty sergeant, past the motor pool, straight to briefing room C. Dreth was already there for the 0700. He stood up when she came in. I don't know if it was instinct or if he saw something in her face that 12 hours hadn't been in there before. She put the satchel on the table and unzipped it and set out what was inside. 22 laminated identity tags. Taliban platoon leadership, a Tier 2 cell commander, 2 sub-commanders, 7 cell facilitators, 12 designated shooters. The tags were clean and ordered, each marked with a field notation in her handwriting. Next to the tags, a topographic overlay with 9 marked positions, weapons caches, 2 staging points, a communications node that our signals unit had been trying to locate for 4 months. She had been in the valley for 18 months. Not Maya, not Kia, despite what the records said. She had been operating black, no support network, no extract on call, no resupply except what she could build from the ground up. The MIA designation had been her cover, a decision made 3 echelons above this fob and compartmentalized so tightly that not one person at Harwick had been read in. The authorization string went through a directorate. I don't have clearance to name in this account. Someone up that chain had trusted her enough to cut the safety net entirely and let her work. I learned all of this from her file, which I pulled while she was standing at the table. I read it standing up, in the doorway of the room, while Dreth stared at 22 tags arranged in careful rows and did not speak. The ghost kills on our coalition scouts, the ones that had been bleeding the reconnaissance network for a year and a half, the pattern none of our analysts could crack. She had found the source. 3 separate teams had tried to work that valley from the outside, with full support packages, and come back empty or not come back at all. She had done it from the inside, embedded in the terrain itself, moving only at night, building a picture one observation at a time across a year and a half of sustained patience. She had mapped it, tagged it, and walked it through our front gate in a canvas satchel, alone. No extraction insurance, no partner force, no backup radio channel. Nothing but her own skill and the discipline to stay invisible when visibility was death. The valley was still standing because she had been holding a thread no one even knew was there. I stepped into the room. Colonel Dreth, clear the room. His staff went. Dreth stayed, which I had expected. He's not a man who leaves when things get hard. I'll give him that. I told him what I had read. I kept my voice flat because I needed him to hear every word without his defenses going up. He listened without looking at me. He kept looking at the tags. She stood at the edge of the table, not rigid, not performing patience, just standing the way trained people stand, when they are completely done reacting to a situation and are simply present in it. The satchel was still open. She hadn't said another word. Voss, I said. She looked at me. I owe you an apology. I watched what happened in this room yesterday. I said nothing. That was a failure of command. She held my eyes for a moment. Then she said, I came back for the handoff, sir. The positions on that overlay need a strike package in the next 48 hours before the cell resets. That was the whole of it, for her. She had come back to complete the mission. I walked to the door of briefing room C and opened it. The FOB's morning shift was in the compound. Motor pool crews, intelligence staff, the duty watch. I told the sergeant major to bring everyone in from the compound. Not an invitation, an order. They came 40-some personnel, the day shift and the remnants of the night watch, who hadn't yet stood down, and they filled the narrow compound outside the briefing room door. Some of them came with coffee still in their hands. 2 intelligence analysts jogged in from the adjacent building. The motor pool crew chief came in with a rag in his back pocket, wiping his knuckles, and he stopped when he saw the doorway and didn't move again. I stepped out to face them. Attention. They came to it. Chief Warrant Officer Forlina Voss, call sign Ashline, has been operating in the Sarkin Valley for 18 months under black status. The intelligence she developed and delivered this morning broke the cell that has been killing our scouts. You will look at her, and you will know what this looks like. I nodded to the doorway. She came through it, thin and dust-burned and entirely still. She didn't look at the formation the way someone looks at a crowd that has gathered for them. She looked across it the way a person looks at a horizon, level, unperformed, neither wanting the moment nor stepping away from it. 40 personnel in a compound at FOB Harwick came to attention without a second order. That is not nothing. These are people who have seen things. They do not come to attention for ceremony. They came to it because what they were looking at was real, and they knew it. Dreth came out behind her. He stood to her left. He didn't wait for me to prompt him. He raised his right hand and rendered a full formal salute, and he held it there at the 4 count, and he brought it down clean. She returned it. Same 4 count. Same clean break. She picked up the satchel. She handed it to my G2 officer, who had come in with the formation and was standing near the door, and she said 3 quiet words to him that I didn't hear. Coordinates, probably. Or a timeline. Something operational, something that couldn't wait. Then she walked across the compound to the medical tent. She had a cut along her left forearm she hadn't mentioned, hadn't even seemed to register, and she went inside, and that was the last I saw of her that morning. The strike package ran on the marked positions 31 hours later. 7 of the 9 were still occupied. The signals node went quiet. I kept the mission summary she wrote in the debrief that afternoon. 2 pages, plain text, no decoration, just the operational facts and the recommended follow-on. It is not a document full of I. She appears in it only as a coordinate, a time, a result. The work is what's on the page. She put it there and moved on. I have been in this theater for 6 years. I have seen people do brave things, loud things, fast things, things that happen in 30 seconds and get written up for medals and filed and framed. What Voss did was not that kind of brave. It was the kind that doesn't have a frame to go in. It is just a hole in a year and a half of the record where she should have been visible and wasn't, and 18-some sons of coalition scouts who are still alive and do not know the name of the reason. I think about the morning she walked into that briefing room, the satchel, the table, Dreth's face. I think about the moment I didn't speak. I don't carry it as punishment. I carry it as instruction.